Animals avoided it, but plants seemed to grow extremely well. Radios acted weird. If Mel brought a radio near the hole, the signal would get very staticky and then start picking up broadcasts from somewhere else.
A drone sent to uncover the truth plunged straight into Mel's hole, only to vanish without a trace. But before it disappeared, it sent back one final image, something glowing deep inside, something that should not exist. And that was just the beginning. Tune in, because what we've uncovered will change everything you think you know about Mel's hole and what lies beneath it. The bottomless mystery beneath Washington. A man named Mel Waters first brought the world's attention to this eerie abyss. He claimed that no matter how much rope he let down, he never hit the bottom. But that was just the start. Animals avoided the place. Birds refused to fly over it. People who stood too close felt dizzy, like the earth itself was pulling them in. What could be lurking down there? Some say it's just a pit. Others swear something down there watches and waits. Mel and his neighbors used the hole as a dump for years. Trash, furniture, even old appliances. Everything disappeared into the darkness without a sound, but things took a terrifying turn when a local threw his dead dog inside. A few days later, that same dog was seen running through the forest, alive but different, like it had come back from another world. Then came the light. Strange, glowing beams shot up from the hole at night, flickering in ways that didn't make sense. Some looked like they were pulsing, others were steady, cutting through the sky like eerie lanterns. But what scared people the most was the sound, a low hum that sent shivers through their bones. Determined to understand the mystery, Mel tried an experiment. He lowered candy tied to fishing line into the pit, hoping to find water. But when he pulled the line back up, the candy was dry as dust. Confused but fascinated, he kept going. He unspooled thousands and thousands of feet of fishing line, but it just kept going deeper. No bottom, no splash, just more darkness. It didn't make sense. How deep could a hole possibly be? Word spread fast. People came to see the bottomless pit for themselves. But not long after, the government got involved. Helicopters hovered over Mel's land. Military trucks blocked the roads. Officials in dark suits told Mel he was no longer welcome on his own property. They said it was for safety reasons, but no one believed them. What had they found down there? Mel fought to get back to his land, but the military wasn't budging. When he tried pushing back, a strange man in a suit warned him to stop asking questions. "Talk all you want," he said with a smirk. "Nobody will believe you." Then came the strangest part. One day, Mel's radio picked up an old baseball game from decades ago. He checked every station, but they all played old broadcasts, music, news, events from the past. It was like the airwaves had been thrown back in time. But how? Was the hole messing with time itself? Locals had their own theories. Some thought the pit was a gateway to another world. Others believed it was connected to underground civilizations. A few even suggested that whatever fell inside might not be lost. It might just be sent somewhere else. Just as people were starting to dig deeper into Mel's hole, Mel himself disappeared. He was supposed to give another radio interview, but when the time came, he was gone. No calls, no messages, no sign of where he had gone. Some believed he had been silenced. Others thought he had been bribed to stay quiet. And a few whispered that maybe, just maybe, he had fallen into the hole himself. Years later, a rumor spread that Mel had been offered millions to leave the country and never speak of the hole again. He vanished without a trace, and the military kept the area locked down. Whatever was down there, they didn't want anyone to find out. Even now, people still talk about Mel's hole. Some claim to have found old maps marking the area, but when they visit, the land looks untouched, as if the hole never existed. Others believe it's been hidden on purpose, buried under layers of secrecy. But the stories won't go away. A hole that deep, that dark, that strange, it's hard to ignore. And the question remains, what was down there? And who, or what, wanted to keep it a secret? This story has layers upon layers of unanswered questions. Some say the government sealed the hole to keep people safe. Others believe that something dangerous or valuable lies beneath, something that could change everything. There have been whispers that strange creatures once climbed out, only to be taken away in secret military trucks. Others claim that those who get too close hear voices from below, like echoes from another time or another world. The enigma of Mel's mysterious hole. At one point, Mel's radio played songs from decades ago. He tried changing the station and found a broadcast of a baseball game from 1967, 30 years earlier. When Art first talked to Mel on his show, they chatted for an hour while Mel was in Ellensburg, but Mel couldn't get back to his land. The military blocked the way, armed and ready, claiming there was a plane crash. They didn't show any evidence of a crash, but still stopped Mel from entering, saying they needed to investigate. But this wasn't the end of the trouble. When Mel asked to speak with their leader, a man in civilian clothes showed up. He hinted that Mel might not own his land anymore and suggested there might be illegal activities there, like secret drug production. When Mel threatened to go to the media with his concerns, the mysterious person just laughed and said, "Go ahead and talk. No one's going to believe your stories." But here's the twist. Art Bell and his radio audience loved hearing strange stories. Soon after, Art contacted Mel to see if anything new had happened. Mel shared a strange story from a neighbor who saw a dark beam of light shooting up into the sky, cutting through the clouds. It was a strange and scary sight. Even though Mel didn't see this himself, Art Bell and many callers on his show knew that this part of Washington was known for strange things. There had been lots of UFO sightings, mysterious disappearances, and other weird happenings. Callers to the show had all kinds of ideas about the hole. Some thought it was on a ley line, an invisible natural grid that carries spiritual or cosmic energy. They speculated that the hole could be a portal to another dimension or even a tunnel through time. They even suggested that things and animals thrown into the hole might end up in a different universe. One of the wildest theories from a caller was that the hole could be an entrance to the hollow earth, a mythical idea that says there's a hidden civilization inside the earth. This led to even more wild theories from listeners. But since Art couldn't check out the property himself, he relied on local stories. An old neighbor remembered ancient stone structures that used to surround the hole, hinting that it had been a mystery for a long time. Meanwhile, listeners warned Mel about talking too much about these wild ideas. They thought it might attract unwanted attention or make people doubt him. But that wasn't the worst part. Some listeners worried that discussing these theories could bring real trouble, making people curious or even scared. They suggested Mel should be careful about what he shared. At around 10:30 in the morning, there might be a risk because the authorities could be watching. As the show ended, Mel said he would come back to share more updates. But when it was time for him to appear again, he was nowhere to be found. He didn't answer his phone or any messages. This made a TV team decide to go to Ellensburg to investigate. When they got there, they didn't find any sign of the supposed hole. Instead, they found military documents and details suggesting a recent or ongoing military presence. It took 3 long years before Mel shared that he had been offered about $3 million each year to let his property be used under strict conditions. He had to stop talking about the site, move out of the United States immediately, and promise never to return. Returning home seemed simple, but it led to unexpected twists. The mysterious path of Mel Waters. Despite these strict rules, Mel took the offer and moved to Australia for a few years. But he started feeling homesick, missing his family and familiar places. Eventually, he decided to sneak back to the US to see his family again. As Mel made his way back, he faced more and more risks and challenges, always looking for the hidden truths about the hole. He knew he wasn't supposed to return, and everyone warned him not to. Ignoring the warnings, he came back to see his family and even planned to share more on Art Bell's radio show. But then, things took an unexpected turn. On the day he was supposed to speak on the radio, Mel was traveling by bus to visit his nephew when a big argument broke out among the passengers. The fight got so intense that the police had to step in. All the passengers were questioned and then put on another bus to continue their trip. But Mel's day got even stranger as he suddenly passed out. When he woke up, he found himself confused and in a San Francisco alley with 12 days missing from his memory. His wallet was gone, his arm was sore with marks from needles, and there was tape residue suggesting IV treatment. To his horror, he also discovered that some of his back teeth were missing, leaving him scared and confused. But this wasn't the worst part. Mel's troubles only got worse. He never managed to return to his property. Soon he got caught up in legal issues over unauthorized buildings and roads on his land, developments he hadn't approved. Even though he said his land had been used by the government, it didn't matter. Mel ended up losing everything he owned. After trying to reconnect with Art Bell, Mel found out that his bank account had been emptied. Many people started to doubt his story, thinking he made it all up. But Art Bell, always interested in a strange tale, invited Mel to share his story again. A twist, Mel mentioned that a TV crew once tried to find the famous hole on his land. Although they didn't find the hole, they found evidence of significant military activity in the area. Adding to the mystery, a sudden restriction was put in place, banning planes from flying over Mel's property, with the no-fly zone growing over time. But this wasn't the end. A satellite imagery website showed a mysterious black square over the area around Mel's land, hiding any details. While some people thought Mel might have made up his story based on this strange black square, the ongoing mysteries and unusual events around his land kept people talking and wondering about his saga. 6 months had passed since Mel first reached out to Art Bell, with no clue of what was about to happen. Just when Mel's story seemed like it couldn't get any stranger, an unexpected twist came. A Native American tribe from Nevada contacted him after hearing about his strange discovery, a hole with no bottom. They had a similar phenomenon and thought Mel might help because of his unique experience. Excited by this new adventure, Mel headed to Nevada to investigate another endless pit. This second site was in a different area, and before they could go there, Mel had to talk with the local Native American community and a group called the Bosque. They wanted to make sure Mel wasn't hiding anything, like connections with the media or government. Mel's next adventure promised surprising discoveries, the abyss of Nevada's mysterious pit. Once they trusted him, Mel was taken to the new site. Everyone was curious about what might be at the bottom of this other hole. Unlike the first one, this hole was on public land, not tribal land. The Bosque, who came from the region between France and Spain and had been in Nevada since the 1800s for sheep herding, claimed this site as their own. This community saw the hole, which was at least 2 centuries old and about 9 feet wide, as a sacred place. This pit was different in appearance, with a metal ring lining its inside instead of stone. The metal used was also rare. During his inspection, Mel noticed a strange warmth coming from the pit. When he dropped a tool onto the metal by accident, there was no sound. It was like the sound got swallowed by the abyss. Intrigued, Mel and the Bosque community started doing tests. They lowered a bucket of ice down to 1,000 feet, while keeping another batch of ice above ground to compare. When they brought the bucket back up, the ice on the surface had melted, but the ice from the depths was still solid, warm and dry, looking like blocks of salt. When they tried to melt this odd ice with heat, something even stranger happened. It caught fire and burned for a long time. But this wasn't the worst part. As they continued experimenting with different amounts of ice, sometimes it melted normally, but other times it turned into the strange, burning material. As curiosity grew, a daring idea from one of the Bosque members to go down into the hole was quickly rejected by the group, recognizing the dangers involved. So they came up with a new plan, lowering a sheep into the well. It might sound strange, but that's exactly what they did. The sheep seemed to know something was wrong and fought hard against being lowered into the dark. It was as if it knew something weird was about to happen. The team carefully lowered a crate with the sheep down the well, aiming for a depth of 1,000 feet. Suddenly, the rope stopped moving, and an eerie feeling filled the air. A strange humming noise surrounded them. After leaving the sheep down there for 30 minutes, they pulled the crate back up. At first, everything looked normal, but when they looked closer, they saw the sheep was dead. This shocked and scared everyone, making them feel like they were dealing with something really mysterious. The locals, who knew a lot about sheep, decided to examine the sheep's insides to figure out what had happened. What they found was both alarming and strange. The sheep's insides looked like they had been heated, and a huge growth took up most of its body. Things got even weirder when the growth started moving on its own. Shocked, they decided to cut open the growth, revealing something that looked like a baby seal, but not quite. It was attached to the growth by something like an umbilical cord, but its eyes looked very human. the seal-like creature moved itself to the edge of the table. Mel felt it wanted to go back to the well. Despite its slimy texture and strange smell, like the air after a thunderstorm, Mel carried it close to the well. They all watched in silence for hours. Then in a quick moment, the creature jumped back into the dark well. A new encounter changed everything for Mel in an unexpected way. Mel's transformative encounter. But this wasn't the worst part. Before this happened, Mel was dealing with a serious cancer diagnosis. The doctors hadn't given him much hope. Yet after this strange encounter, his health started to improve miraculously. He felt better than he had in years. Mel believed that his recovery was because of the interaction with the mysterious seal-like creature, thinking it had somehow healed him. This whole experience changed Mel's life completely. He had stepped into a totally different world and came back changed. As the radio show episode ended, there was a serious warning to the listeners. The path to the mysterious well was still open, but everyone was advised not to go near it. The clear message was that approaching the well could lead to very strange and dangerous events. Terrifying results emerged, like completely disappearing into the unknown. Several months later, Mel returned to the Coast to Coast radio show. He had more strange stories to share, especially about the experiments with the never-ending burning ice. A local from Bosque, trying to stay warm, took a piece of this ice into his home. But the results were far worse than he expected. The flame from the ice burned endlessly for months. It changed the air inside the house, sucking out all the moisture and making everything really dry. The person living there suffered from severe dehydration and dry skin. Even boiling water acted strangely, with the steam being drawn directly into the flame. Then something totally unexpected happened. The wood stove, heated by this strange ice, collapsed through the cabin floor as if the ground beneath it couldn't hold it anymore. Instead of fixing the floor, they just covered the hole and kept using the weird fire for warmth. But things got even stranger. Weeks later, the entire cabin crumbled into dust, as if it had given up. When the owner returned with his brother a month later, they saw something odd. The stove was now 5 feet below where it used to be. It seemed like the burning ice had created a small, new version of Mel's bottomless pit right under the stove, surrounded by a smooth, flat surface. They tried to get the stove out, but couldn't do it alone. It wasn't until they brought in a large crane that they managed to lift the stove from this new pit. But the story didn't end there. The locals began sharing their stories about a magical seal that had come from the original pit. They saw this seal as a friendly creature, a positive force that connected them to the mysterious powers of the pit. They felt a deep spiritual bond with the seal, something beyond ordinary understanding. Colorful birds started to gather around the pit, not bothered by anything. The locals thought these birds were a sign, maybe some kind of recognition or blessing from the magical seal and the mysterious force of the pit. The birds and the seal seemed to be part of a bigger spiritual story happening in Nevada. Meanwhile, the true nature of Mel's hole remained a mystery, wrapped in layers of intrigue. In a surprising twist, the Bosque community revealed a shocking claim. The magical seal had found a way to communicate with them. This communication wasn't in any normal way, but through a series of beeps and clicks over the radio. The locals believed these sounds weren't just noise, but actual messages. They thought the seal was talking to them, warning them about the dangers of the strange burning ice, and cautioning that terrible things could happen if it fell into the wrong hands. As mysteries deepen, we must ask, is the seal a guardian or harbinger? Share your thoughts in the comments, like, and subscribe for more.